My grandfather dropped trees on that mountain his whole life, and I never one time saw him put one where he did not mean to put it. I saw him drop a big red oak between the smokehouse and the well, and there was maybe 6 feet of daylight on either side of it when it came down. He did not measure anything. He did not have a rope on it. He had a saw, an axe, and 2 steel wedges in his back pocket, and he stood there and looked at that tree for longer than it took him to cut it. That is the part nobody shows you. The cutting is about 4 minutes. The looking is the job. Now, I had a fella come out and quote me on a tree last fall. Big dime poplar leaning over toward the fence. $900, he says. $900 for something my grandfather would have handled before breakfast and been splitting by dinner. So today I am going to give you every one of the old ways he used. 12 of them. 12 things that let a man with hand tools put a tree exactly where he wants it, including trees that are leaning the wrong direction entirely. And I am going to be straight with you before we start, because this one is different from the others I have shown you. A fence post cannot kill you. A tree absolutely can, and it kills people every single year, and most of them were not fools. So I am going to tell you the ways, and I'm also going to tell you where the ways stop. Stay with me to the end, because the 12th one is the one nobody tells you, and it is the one that saves you 2 days of work every time. Here is the whole thing in one sentence. And if you take nothing else from me today, take this one. You do not push a tree over. You decide where it is going before you ever pull that cord. The notch aims it, the hinge steers it, the wedge overrules the lean. That is it. That is the entire business. And everything else I am going to say is just a longer way of saying those 3 things. The notch aims it, the hinge steers it, the wedge overrules the lean. My name is Amos, and this is the Old Mountain Way. Pull up a chair. Now, before the first one, I want to say the hard part and get it behind us. There are trees you should not touch. Not because you are not capable, but because there is no version of this where the odds are on your side. Anything near a power line. Not close to, not under, not maybe, any line at all, you put the saw down and you call the power company, and they will very often come and deal with it for nothing. Anything that can reach a house, a barn, a road, or a neighbor. If the tree is taller than the distance to the thing, the tree can reach the thing. Measure that with your eye and be honest. Anything already hung up in another tree. That is the single most dangerous object in the woods, and I will come back to it. And anything you have got a bad feeling about, that feeling is your own eyes doing arithmetic your mouth has not caught up with yet. Listen to it. Everything past that line is a job for a man with a bucket truck and insurance, and there is no shame in it whatsoever. My grandfather turned down trees. That is why he got to be old. All right? The first old way, and it is not a cut at all. Read the tree before you touch it. He would walk all the way around a tree 3 times before he ever set a saw down. 3 full circles, slow, looking up the whole time. And he was looking for 5 things every single time in the same order. The lean, which way does the trunk actually go? Not which way you want it to go, which way it goes. The crown, where's the weight in the top? A tree can stand plumb as a post and have every limb it owns hanging out over one side, and that weight is going to win. The crown lies less than the trunk does. Dead wood up top, broken limbs hanging loose in the branches. Old timers called those widowmakers, and they named them that for a reason. They come down first, straight down on the man running the saw. If there is loose stuff up there, you knock it down with a pole first, or you leave that tree alone entirely. Rod at the base. Punch the butt of it with the back of your axe. And listen, solid wood rings, rotten wood thuds, and it goes soft under the pole. A hollow tree has got no hinge to steer with, and I will explain why that matters in a minute. And the wind. Not what the weather says. What the top of that tree is doing right now while you are standing there. If the crown is moving, you go home. He would not cut in wind, ever, and neither should you. 3 circles, 5 things. It takes 4 minutes, and it is the 4 most valuable minutes of the whole job. The second old way is how you judge the lean, honestly. Because everybody guesses wrong on this, and they guess wrong in the direction they want. Here is his trick, and it costs nothing. Stand back from the tree a good ways, further than you think. Hold your axe up by the very end of the handle, out at arm's length, and let it hang straight down like a plumb bob. Let it settle. That handle is now dead vertical, truer than any eye. Now line the handle up against the trunk. Now you can see it. Now you can see exactly how much that tree leans and which way, because you have got something perfectly straight to compare it against. Then walk a quarter of the way around the tree and do it again. Because a tree that looks plumb from the front can be leaning hard away from you and you will never see it from one side. Two looks 90 degrees apart. That is how you find out what the tree actually wants. And write it down or say it out loud. The tree wants to go that way. Now you know what you are arguing with. The third old way is the one people skip, and it is the one that kills them. Clear your ground and cut your escape path before the saw ever starts. Look at where you are standing. Clear the brush, the vines, the rocks, the limbs, everything in a good wide circle around that trunk. Anything that can grab your boot. Then you cut 2 escape paths, not 1, 2, and they go backwards and away at about 45 degrees off the line of the fall, 1 on each side. 45 degrees, and here is why, that exact number. If you run straight back from the fall, the butt of that tree can kick backwards off the stump when it goes over, and it will run you down. Straight back is the worst place on the property to be standing. Straight to the side is not much better, because that is where the trunk goes if the hinge fails. 45 degrees back and away on either side is the ground the tree cannot reach. Cut those paths clear. Walk them, both of them, before you cut, so your feet know the ground in the dark, so to speak. Because when it starts going, you are going to be looking up, not down. The fourth old way, this is where the aiming happens. The notch is your sight. Whatever direction the notch faces, that is the direction the tree goes. The notch is that wedge of wood you cut out of the side of the trunk facing the way you want it to fall. And people think of it as just weakening the tree. It is not. It is the aim. Here is how he sighted it. He would cut the flat bottom of the notch first in level, and then before he did anything else, he would lay his eye right down along the line of that cut and sight out across it, like a man sighting down a rifle barrel. Wherever that line pointed is where the tree was going. If it was pointing at the wrong gap, he moved the cut right then. While it was still cheap to move, sight it before you commit. That is the whole trick. Once the notch is cut, you have made your decision. The fifth old way is how you cut that notch so it actually works. You want an open face. That means the top cut and the bottom cut come down and up to meet at a good wide angle, 70 degrees or better. And honestly, wider is friendlier. Some of the men who do this for a living open it right up to 90. Why so wide? Because the notch has to stay open the whole way down. The moment those two faces of the notch slap shut against each other, the tree stops steering. It breaks off the stump right there and it goes wherever it pleases for the rest of the trip. A wide notch stays open nearly to the ground, and the tree is being aimed the entire time it falls. That is the difference between a tree you dropped and a tree that fell. And the two cuts have got to meet. Exactly. If your top cut runs past your bottom cut, or the other way around, you have got a step of wood in the corner, and the old boys call that a Dutchman. A Dutchman will grab one corner and swing the tree off your line, sometimes hard. If you look in there and the cuts have not met, you go in and you clean it out before you do one more thing. Take the time. Now clean that wedge of wood out and look through the gap. That opening is aimed at the ground you picked. The sixth old way is the heart of the whole thing, and it is the one most folks have never had explained to them properly. The hinge steers it. When you cut the notch out of the front and then you cut in from the back, you do not cut all the way through. You never cut all the way through. You leave a band of solid uncut wood between the back cut and the bottom of the notch, running across the trunk. That band is the hinge, and it does exactly what a door hinge does. It holds the tree to the stump while it goes over, and it forces it to pivot around that line instead of just falling loose. As long as the hinge is holding, the tree is being steered. The second the hinge is gone, so is your control. So how much wood do you leave? The men who write the safety rules for professional loggers put real numbers on this, and they are worth memorizing because guessing here is how people get hurt. The hinge should run about 80% of the width of the tree. So on a trunk a foot across, that hinge is about 9.5 inches long side to side. And the hinge should be about 10% of the width of the tree thick front to back. On that same foot wide trunk, that is a bit over an inch of solid wood. About the thickness of your thumb, 80% long, 10% thick. Say it in the truck on the way out there. Too thin and it snaps early and you have got a loose tree. Too thick and it will not break at all. And the tree sits there rocking on the stump with all that weight up in the air, and now you've got a real problem on your hands. Even thickness all the way across matters too. A hinge that is fat on one end and thin on the other will pull the tree toward the fat end every time, which I will tell you is also a way to steer on purpose once you have got some years on you. And this is why a rotten hollow tree is so treacherous. There is nothing there to make a hinge out of. No hinge, no steering, and you are just standing next to a falling tree hoping. The seventh old way is the back cut, and there are two right answers depending on your notch. If you cut a nice wide open face like I described, 70 degrees or better, then your back cut comes in level, straight in, at the same height as the point where the two notch cuts meet. Level with the corner, straight and level, and you stop when you have got your hinge thickness. You do not cut to the notch, you cut to the hinge. But if you cut the old narrow 45-degree notch, the way a lot of folks were taught, then that back cut does not go in level. It comes in an inch or two above the corner of the notch, so it leaves a little step of wood. That step is there to catch the trunk and keep the butt from kicking backwards off the stump at you. Get that backwards and you have got trouble. A back cut below the notch corner is about the worst thing you can do, because now the trunk can slide off the stump toward you instead of going over. And go slow at the end of that cut. Slow. You are not racing anything. You are feeling for the moment the tree starts to talk. The eighth old way is the one that answers a question everybody actually came here with. What about a tree that is leaning the wrong way? The wedge overrules the lean. You put your notch on the side you want it to go, you make your back cut, and before that cut gets deep, you drive a wedge into it. Steel or plastic, and honestly, plastic is kinder if you have got a chain anywhere near it. You tap it in with the back of the axe, and you keep tapping as you go. That wedge is lifting the entire trunk, not much. It does not have to be much. You are only asking that tree to change its mind by a couple of degrees, and a couple of degrees at the stump is a long way over at the top. It is the same lever business I showed you with the fence posts. Just standing up. Two wedges side by side is better than one on anything of size, and you drive them a little at a time, turn about, so you are lifting even. Now, a wedge will absolutely stand a tree up against a modest lean. It will not save you from a big committed leaner with the whole crown hanging out over one side. When the weight is genuinely against you, that tree goes where the weight says. Wedge for a few degrees. Do not wedge for a miracle. And here is a small thing that matters more than it sounds. If you have got your saw buried in that back cut and the tree settles back and pinches the bar, a wedge tapped in behind it will free it right up, which is why you carry them even on the easy ones. The ninth old way is about the iron, and he was fierce about this. Sharp. Everything sharp. A dull chain does not cut, it rubs. And when a saw rubs instead of cuts, what does a man do? He pushes. He leans on it. And now he has got his weight forward, on his toes, on uneven ground, pushing on a running saw. That is the position people get hurt in. Not the dramatic ones. That one. A sharp chain pulls itself into the wood and throws chips out the side. Chips, like little chunks of wood. If your saw is throwing fine dust instead of chips, stop. Right there. Sharpen it before the next cut. Same with the axe. Same with the wedges. He kept the faces of his wedges clean because a mushroom wedge skips out of the cut and comes back at your hand. Sharp tools mean you never have to force anything. And never forcing anything is how a man does this for 50 years and keeps all these fingers. The 10th old way is what you do in the last few seconds. And there is more to it than you would think. Watch the top, not the cut. Once that back cut is getting close, your eyes belong up in the crown of that tree. The trunk down at your knee will tell you nothing until it is too late. The top tells you first. It will start to lean just a little before anything else happens. And listen, there is a sound, a crack, then a low creaking that comes down through the wood. The moment you hear that or see that top start over, you shut the saw off and you go down your path. The one you cut and walked, you walk, you do not run. Running on ground with limbs and stumps in it is how a man is on the floor of the woods with a tree coming and there's not a second in it either way. And keep watching it while you go. Do not turn your back. Trees do unexpected things on the way down. They catch a limb of the next tree over and swing. They kick, they break. You want your eyes on it until it is on the ground and quiet. Then wait. Give it a full minute after it lands. Look up. Things come down out of a canopy well after the tree does, and they come down silent. The 11th old way is the one where I tell you to stop. The hung up tree. Sometimes it goes over and it does not come down. It leans into the tree beside it and it hangs there. 20 tons of wood held up by a couple of branches and nothing else, and it is now loaded like a trap. Every part of you wants to fix it. Do not. Do not cut the tree that is holding it. Do not cut the base off the hung one and try to walk it back. Do not climb anything. Do not send anybody under it for any reason at all. What you do is you back away. You rope off the whole area if there is anybody else on that property, and you get a machine or a winch and pull it from a good long distance, or you call somebody who has got one. If neither of those is happening today, that tree stays hung up and everybody stays out from under it, and that is a perfectly acceptable outcome. That is the same posture for a spring pole, by the way, which is any sapling or limb bent over and pinned under something. Those are under real tension and they let go all at once. Nobody stands near one but the man cutting it, and he cuts it a little at a time on the outside of the bend. There is no board and no firewood worth what a hung up tree can take from you. My grandfather left one hanging for a whole season. He walked past it all summer, did not bother him at all. Now, the 12th old way, and this is the one I promised you. This is the one nobody mentions. Do not just aim it at a gap. Aim it for the work that comes after. Because dropping the tree is about 4 minutes. What you do with it after is 2 days, and where it lands decides how hard those 2 days are. Here's what he did. He aimed it across the slope, never straight down it. A log lying downhill wants to roll, and it will roll the second you cut a limb off the uphill side of it. A log lying across the slope stays where you put it. He aimed it so the crown landed where he wanted the brush pile, not where he would have to drag the brush to. Brush is the heaviest work in the whole job, and it is all dragging. Land the top near where the pile goes and you have saved yourself half of it. He tried to land the trunk across something. Another log, a couple of limbs, a rise in the ground, anything that holds it a hand's width up off the dirt. Because a log flat on the ground pinches your saw on every cut, and it is on every cut that you dull the chain in the dirt. A log with a little air under it cuts clean the whole length. And he landed it where the truck could get to it, which sounds obvious. It is not obvious at all when you are looking up at a tree thinking about the gap in the canopy. Ask yourself where the wood's going to be picked up from, and then aim the tree at that answer. The men who do this every day will tell you the same thing in fewer words. The felling is the setup for the bucking. Aim for the second job, not the first. So there it is, 12 of them. Read the tree 3 times around. Plumb the lean with your axe handle. Clear 2 escape paths at 45 degrees before the saw starts. Sight down the notch, because the notch is the aim. Cut it open and wide and make the cuts meet. Leave the hinge 80% long and 10% thick, and never cut through it. Back cut level with an open face, stepped above with a narrow one. Wedge to overrule a modest lean. Keep everything sharp so you never push. Watch the top and walk your path. Walk away from anything hung up and aim it for the work that comes after. And under every one of those is the same one sentence. The notch aims it, the hinge steers it, the wedge overrules the lean. Not one of those 12 things requires $900. Most of them do not require anything but paying attention. Now here is your one thing for this week, and I want you to actually do it because it is free and it will teach you more than watching me will. Go out to whatever tree you have been thinking about. Do not take a saw, leave it in the shed on purpose. Walk around that tree 3 times, find the lean with your axe handle held out like a plumb bob, look up into the crown and find where the weight really is, look for anything dead hanging up there, then pick your spot on the ground where you would want it to land, and then walk your 2 escape paths at 45 degrees back and see whether you can even get out that way. You will learn something standing there. A good many people find out that the tree they had in their head does not fit in the yard they actually own, and that is 100% worth finding out with your hands in your pockets. And I will tell you what my grandfather said when I asked him how he never missed. He said he did miss. He said he just did all his missing standing still before he cut where it did not cost anything. Tell me down there in the comments what tree you have got. Tell me which way it leans and what is sitting on the other side of it, and I will read every one of them. If you have got somebody in your family who dropped trees this way, put their name down there too. I like knowing they are remembered. Subscribe if you have not, and I will see you next time. You take care of yourself now. And you look up